Do you enjoy drinking Cooper's iconic lager and thought you wouldn't mind making yourself with their easy to use homebrew kit? Then come along with me and I'll show you how simple and cost effective it really is. Let's go. Hey guys, Musa here from Quantum Home Improvements and Solutions. Welcome back. And if this is your first time to our channel, it's great having you join us. And so today I'm going to show you how to make Cooper's lager, which actually comes with their homebrew kit. And my wife bought me my first kit many years ago when we lived in Bateman's Bay. And the truth be told, I didn't like the taste of it. And so my neighbor Sam was also brewing and he made a different type of beer. And after about 2.5 months, he wanted to taste my lager because his didn't work out too well. In actual fact, he brewed it under 21 degree and it was fermenting in the bottle and it was exploding. And so we sat down and we tried each other's beers. And he actually said he loved my beer and I thought he was messing around with me. And so I decided to try it again. And lo and behold, it tastes beautiful. And so from then I learned that Cooper's beers get better and better as they get older. And so from that point, Sam decided to start brewing Cooper's lager. But there's a bit of a tragedy to this story. And not long after that, we ended up moving back to Sydney. And later that year, in 2011, in October long weekend, we went back to visit our friends. And later that day, after we arrived, we discovered that Sam, his parents, and 2 nieces were involved in a boating accident on the water. And there was only one survivor, God rest their soul. And so I'd like to dedicate this video to Sam and to his family, but especially to his brother Phil and to Georgia. So I've kept in touch with Phil over the years, and just recently he rang me to tell me that he was visiting Bateman's Bay and he tried Sam's second last bottle of lager, which is over 13 years old. And he said it tastes amazing. And I was surprised. I didn't think Cooper's beer would last that long, even though I've been promoting it on every video. And so Phil has allowed me to share this story with you all. But first, before I did so, I wanted to contact Cooper's to see what they think, to make sure that no one's going to be harmed by drinking old beer. And so I sent an email to Frank, and Frank replied back, telling me just basically that there's nothing dangerous or anything wrong with drinking 13-year-old Cooper's beers. At the worst case, that it'll oxidize and it won't taste good. Okay, so now I'm going to get into it and show you how to make the brew, but I will be making some changes. In actual fact, I'm going to be infusing some Galaxy hops, which will give it a more fruity taste. And also, I'm going to be adding Sav Ale SO4 yeast, which will also assist the fruity taste. Plus, I'm going to add some light dry malt to the brew to make it a little bit sweeter. So before we start, we've got to first take the lid off. And so then we've also got the yeast here. So it comes with its own yeast, as I said, but we're just going to put that on the side. We're not going to be using it today. And so also, on the side here, you've got some instructions. You just peel that off. There we go. And we'll use this as a reference. And so now we put the syrup in boiling water for 20 minutes to soften it. So now while the syrup is softening, we're going to sterilize and sanitize the fermenter. And so when you buy a brand new kit, you don't need to sterilize, you just need to sanitize. And I use phosphoric acid. But it is recommended that you sterilize after you've done your first batch, and you never wash anything down with soap. Soap is not good for brew. And so you wash it out with hot water. And so when you ferment the next time, then you use something like chlorinated trisodium phosphate, which I got from Country Brewers. And so you put 1 teaspoon per litre. So I'm going to be putting 2 litres into this fermenter to wash it. So I'm going to put 2 teaspoons. And so before I put the hot water in, I'm just going to put the tap on. And so Cooper's recommend that you put a bit of water on the seals before you put it in, and don't use oil. Okay, so I've got that in, and now I'll just put in 2 litres of hot water. Okay, so that's pretty hot. Just let that cool down just a little before you wipe that down. So now that it's cooled down, I'll just grab a cloth. So now I'll just wash it down. Now this is a 3-part system. So you have the sleeve, the lid, and the main body. And so I'm just going to wash it down. Okay, just make sure I don't miss anywhere. I'll just wash the spoon down. Pretty much you sanitize everything. So there are a lot of people that actually don't sterilize, they just sanitize. And a lot of these guys know what they're doing. They use Sterilize or Starzan and they're very successful with it. But being a conscientious YouTuber, I prefer to show you the way that's recommended just in case, because the bacteria is everywhere and you can't see it. So if you're comprehensive, that way you know that you've covered yourself and you will have a good batch. Okay, so now I'll just wash down the lid. And later, I'm gonna be using this cup for the hops. So I'm gonna sterilize that as well. Okay, so now we'll just wash it out in cold water. And now the next thing I'm gonna do is sanitize it. And so this is the part where you do when it's brand new. So this is phosphoric acid, it's a food grade. You do not wash this out once you put it on. So all you do is just spray it on. Okay, I'll just tip this out in the sink. Okay, so now we're going to prepare the hops. So this hops, as I mentioned before, is Galaxy. It's an Australian hops and it's very fruity. It does actually have a high alpha percentage, so it's up to 16%, which is pretty good. But we're not going to use it for bitterness. We're just going to use it purely for its fruity taste. All right, so what you do, it comes in a bag when you're fusing. So you've got to buy the one that is a fusion hops. So it comes in a bag already, in a tea bag. You place it in a cup, you boil your water, and let it sit for around 10 to 20 minutes. Okay, so now we're gonna open up the tin. Okay, and there we are, nice and soft. You're gonna have to carry this with a tea towel because it's gonna be pretty hot. Okay, so now what we need is boiling water. Usually use around about 2 litres, depending on your temperature on the day. If it's a warm day, you need to put less hot water because you want the brewing temperature to be at a certain level. And I'll speak about that in a second. Okay, so now I'll just put in roughly about 1 litre, maybe just over. And then I'll pour in the syrup. And there we go. So now we'll use the remainder of the water and wash out the rest of the syrup, which is still in there. Okay, put that on the side. And so just give that a bit of a swirl and tip it in. So now we're going to put in Cooper's Enhancer number 2, which is basically just malt, dextrose, and maltodextrin. So just put it in very slowly. Okay, that's that one. And now we're just going to use 1/2 kilo of light dry malt. So the light dry malt will give it an extra sweet taste, plus also will give it a better head on the beer as well. So you can see there it's getting a little bit gluggy. All right. All I need to do now is put some water in. I will be using tap water, so make sure if you are using tap water that it's good quality. We've been using it here for 10 years and it's pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with that. And you won't need to put oxygen into the brew because the water will already have it. If you do make your own brew from grain, you do have to put oxygen in. Okay, so now I'll just put the water in. Okay, so now we get it up to 23 litres, and there we are. All right, so now I'm gonna put this sleeve on. So you basically just put that on top, like that. And now we just wait for the temperature to drop. It's looking like it's around about 26 degrees. So I wanna pitch the yeast, but before I do that, I've gotta allow the temperature to drop, and also I need to get a hydrometer reading. Okay, so the temperature has dropped beautifully. Sitting at 25 degrees, which I'm happy about. Okay, so now I'll just put some in the cylinder. Okay, put the hydrometer in to see what reading we get. Okay, so Coopers say that this should come in at 1038, but because I've put the extra light dry malt, it will have a higher alcohol content, and so it's sitting at roughly 1042. Okay, so now, whatever you do, do not put this back in the brew. Either throw it away or give it a taste. Wow, that's nice. And I haven't even put the Galaxy hops in yet. Okay, so now, just put this back over here. And so the Galaxy hops has been sitting in here for roughly about 20 minutes, and it's ready to go in. So I'll just put that in now. And you put that in just before you put the yeast in. I'll just give it a light stir. Okay, that hasn't altered the temperature too much. There wasn't that much in the Big Daddy cup. Okay, so now the last thing we need to do is pitch the yeast. And as I said before, I'm going to be using Fermenter's Sav Ale SO4, which is going to enhance the fruity taste. So this yeast can be brewed anywhere from 18 to 26 degrees Celsius, and we're sitting on just over 25. So I'll just place that in, just give it a light sprinkle. So you don't mix this in. Now we just put the lid on. We've got 2 clips, place them on the sides. Okay, it's done. Okay, so now Coopers recommend that you let it sit for 6 days. I generally let it sit for 8 days to let it settle a bit more. So if the temperature rises while you're brewing, you need to put the brew in a colder spot. And if it's too cold, you need to put a heat mat or a blanket around it. It's the 8th day and the brew is ready to be bottled, and the temperature is currently sitting at about 23 degrees and has been for a few days now. And so once again, the temperature for the Saf Ale SO4 is between 18 to 26, so that's perfect. And just in case you're wondering what a heat pad looks like, this is the Morgan brand, and it works really, really well and not very expensive. And so I've taken a hydrometer reading for the last couple of days and it has stabilized, but I'm going to take one more reading. Okay, first I'll just move the fermenter over to the edge, spray a bit of phosphoric acid on that and just spray a little bit on the little bottler. Just put this on. Okay, just get a little bit of beer into this. Now just get a reading. Okay, it's definitely stabilized at 1009. Okay, so now going by Cooper's chart, the original specific gravity was 1042, which comes in at roughly 5.5 potential alcohol level. Now, what you got to do is minus it off the final specific gravity, which was just taken now, which is 1009, and it comes in at roughly 1.2%. So that equals 4.3% potential alcohol level. Now, in the secondary fermentation period, which happens in the bottle, that's going to rise 0.5%. And this lager will finish up roughly about 4.8%. Okay, so now, whatever you do, don't put this back into the fermenter. Like before, either try it or throw it out. Wow, that is really fruity, but also a bit bitter. I'm looking forward to tasting this in the near future. Okay, so now we're going to sterilize and sanitize the bottles like we did for the fermenter, and I'm going to be using this bottle washer. This is brilliant. I got that from Country Brewer. It's actually imported from Italy and it works really well, and it pumps up the water to the top. The only problem is when you put the bottle through, it can slip in. So I've got a washer here to stop that from happening. Okay, so once again, I'm going to put in 1 liter of hot water, and I'm going to put in 1 spoon of chlorinated trisodium phosphate, which once again I got from Country Brewer. So this is going to be really hot now and it will melt the bottle. So you need to let that cool down just a little before you start washing. Now, while I'm letting that cool down, I'll just explain this. So this here is a bottle tree, which is from Morgan's. And this can actually take 81 bottles, plastic and glass. And so these are removable holders, and each one holds 10. So there comes with 8 of these, comes up pretty high. And so that's 80 bottles, and then you just put one on top. Okay, so I've let that cool down a fair amount. All I do is just put the bottle on top and just push down and let that pump all the way to the top. This thing cleans the bottles better than I've ever been able to in the past. Now, when we finish this, we will wash this out in cold water, just like we did before. Okay, they're all done. Look how dirty that water is. Beautiful. Look at all that stuff coming out. Wow. Okay, so now I'll just wash out the bottles in cold water and also the bottle washer. Okay, so I've got some fresh water back in the bottle washer, and now I'm going to use phosphoric acid to sanitize. Just like before, you don't wash them out with water, you just let them just drip dry on the bottle tree. Okay, last bottle. Look how clean that water is. Okay, so now the last thing to tell you before we bottle is that periodically you're going to need to change these lids. They do lose their seals. So when you do get the bottles brand new, you put them on, it's got a little lip around it and it locks off, and then you open your bottle like you would normally your soda bottle or your milk, and then it breaks off. Now, when you want to put a new one on, you've got to take that lip off when you've got a brand new one. So what you're going to do is push down and take that off. Now, be careful not to distort the lid because it won't close properly. Now, you will make a bit of a mess with the brew going on the ground, so just put a towel down. It's going to make it a lot easier to clean later. All right, so all we do is just place the bottle through the little bottler. So what happens, the little bottler's got a little valve, and as you push the bottle up against the valve, it releases the fluid. Now, one thing I haven't done is take pressure off the lid, so I'll take these clips off and just open the lid a little bit. And as it comes to the top, take it out, have another one ready. So it will froth up a bit the first couple of bottles. So just be gentle with that, just go nice and easy. You might want to let it overflow a little bit just to get rid of the froth. So it is best not to allow the brew to be exposed to the environment too much, and it's best to carbonate them pretty quickly. So once I've got a few, I just then go across, put the carbonation drops. Okay, so now you put 2 carbonated drops. This is Cooper's carbonated drops. You put 2 in for a 750 bottle or 740 bottle, and you close that lid really tight and just give it a little bit of a shake. Now, if it's a 375 bottle, you only put 1 drop. And so the carbonated drops do exactly what the name says. They carbonate the beer, but they also help in the secondary fermentation process. And so these carbonated drops come in a packet, and usually you can do just a little bit more than 1 brew with it. So I can't stress this enough. You got to close that lid tight, because if you don't, the air will escape and the beer will be worthless. Okay, so now we're coming to the bottom of the tap, and now we're going to have to tilt the fermenter to get to the bottom. So Coopers make these fermenters with a bit of a gap on the bottom so you don't get sediment. Okay, so now I'm getting to the very bottom, and I've got to tilt it a bit more by hand. I've got to be very careful not to let the sediment come through, because the sediment is pushing the brew. Okay, all done. Now I'll just carbonate these ones and we're done. So this iconic Cooper's Lager is complete and ready to drink in around 3 weeks. So a good habit to get into is to write down the type of brew you've made, anything you've added to it, and the day you made it. So then you've got a reference on the beer. And so I prefer, as I said before, to drink my brew around about 2.5 to 3 months. And so all Cooper's beers are GMO free, which is genetically modified, organism free, and they have a best after date. And I might even put a couple of bottles on the side here and drink them in 13 years time just to see how these taste like. So one thing I didn't say earlier, the reason I added the Galaxy hops, the Fruity Galaxy, and also the yeast is because I was aiming to change the beer to taste more like a James Squire 150 Lashes. And now I can say it's pretty close, and I'm very happy about that, and I'm looking forward to tasting it in the near future. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Dee from Country Brewer for helping me to come up with this recipe. And also I'd like to say thanks to Frank from Cooper's for giving me the heads up. And finally, I'd like to thank Phil for allowing me to tell this story. And God rest his soul, Sam was a great guy. So I enjoy drinking a good beer with my mates, and we always drink responsibly. And I'd ask you, please consider to do the same. And so now, if you're looking for any of these products, I will put a link in the descriptions below to make it easier for you. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you have any comments at all, please leave below and I will get back to you. And I'd ask you, please consider to subscribe, hit the like button and share this video, and there's many more to come. Thanks, guys.